by the afternoon of the day that they fired everybody, I already knew what I was going to do. In part, I got a phone call from a guy named Jeff Anderson from the Minnesota Vikings. He said, look, if you decide to start your own thing or figure out another place to cover this team, you are welcome to still be here and we'll keep your credential. And that right there was, all right, well, that's what I'm doing, because what else am I going to do? I mean, none of us knew at that time when radio stations were going to get back to hiring. Was it going to be 3 months? Was it going to be 5 years before the money came back and everything else? Nobody had any clue how long this pandemic could go, how long sports would be shut down. I mean, all of us, like at that time, sports was the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan documentary, that 10-part series that we all were getting together and watching, or whatever, 10-hour series on Sunday nights. And the rest of the time it was, I think I watched maybe some Korean baseball. So it was very unclear what was going to happen. And so, and it's not like anybody else was hiring either at the time. And my wife had a job in news reporting, which was vital then at the beginning of the pandemic. So she wasn't going to lose her job. It was very important. And she was reporting on the pandemic. I didn't want to say, let's move to the first radio station, whatever city, wherever place, and give up your career that's going well here, because she was doing play-by-play on the side and then doing the news radio. So I didn't want to say like, oh, let's just pack up and leave because this didn't work out. And a friend of hers had started a Substack. I had never heard of it before, but I knew what Patreon was, and I took a look into it, and I thought, sending something to everybody's email every day might be attractive to people. And I knew a baseball writer named Joe Sheehan, who I think was at maybe MLB.com or something like that, and had left to do something very similar to that, where he sends out a daily email and people pay for it. I figured that my coverage was unique enough, coming from sports radio and a different approach than, say, newspapers would be doing it, that there would be people who are loyal listeners to the show and loyal readers to our website that would be interested in coming along for the ride for a couple bucks a month. Now, it's a very hard thing to do, to start telling people, hey, can you give me a couple bucks a month? I know there's a pandemic and everyone's losing their job, but can you help me? So the kindness of strangers is something that I will now forever believe in for the rest of my life, because the number of people in the media, of course, that I knew were so helpful, but also people that I had never met before who listened from all over Minnesota and all over the country, people who had left. They were getting behind it and they were subscribing. And then when Blue Wire, when I was connected with them by ESPN's Courtney Cronin, she knew the guy, Kevin Jones, who started Blue Wire. And so we connected on a call, and he said, like, look, I mean, you start a new show and see how it works out. And I thought, well, all right. And the same deal, where a lot of the audience came over and followed along with the show and started to slowly build that up. And then, Blue Wire's just had incredible success. It's funny to think about how maybe when I joined, they might have had one sponsor at the time, and they were just like cobbling together a few podcasts to try this out. And I thought, well, I don't have any better option than this. And then they've exploded and they've done incredibly well. That's been great to see. And then my show has built over the years. And that has been an incredibly rewarding and fun process. So the day that I got fired, I kind of tried to look into the future myself and said, what if I took a lot of the principles of what we were doing at Score North and I just did them on my own and did kind of the same job, but, asked people for the subscriptions and things like that. And then started to build it in a very similar way, but just on my own, as opposed to what we were doing. And it's played out to be, the best thing that possibly could have happened.